Why this moment still haunts me. It was a crisp autumn evening, the kind where the wind carries just a hint of winter's chill. I was driving home after visiting a friend who lived in the countryside, a good hour's journey from my apartment. The road was nearly deserted, save for the occasional pair of headlights flashing past. My playlist hummed softly in the background, a perfect companion for the solitude of the drive. About halfway through the journey, I noticed something strange, a faint silhouette on the side of the road. At first, I thought it was a deer, common in this area, but as I got closer, I realized it was a person, a young woman, to be exact. She was standing completely still, her arms folded around her body as if trying to keep warm. Her appearance struck me immediately. She was dressed in a thin, pale dress, not at all suitable for the chilly weather. Her hair, long and dark, hung limply over her shoulders, and her bare feet rested on the gravel. Against my better judgment, I slowed down and I rolled down the window. "Are you okay?" I called out. She didn't answer. Instead, she turned her head slowly and looked directly at me. Her face was pale, her eyes wide and glassy, though she was in shock. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. Something wasn't right. "Do you need help?" I asked again, trying to sound reassuring. She nodded faintly but didn't say a word. I parked the car on the shoulders and got out, my breath visible in the cold air. As I approached her, I noticed she was trembling. "Let's get you somewhere warm," I said, taking off my jacket and dropping it over her shoulders. She didn't resist, but she also didn't thank me. Her silence was unsettling. I led her to the car and opened the passenger door. She slid in without a word, her movements slow and deliberate. Once we were back on the road, I tried to make conversation. "What's your name?" I asked, glancing at her. She didn't respond. "Were you out here alone?" I pressed on, my unease growing with each unanswered question. Finally, she whispered something so softly I barely caught it. "I was waiting." "For who?" She didn't answer. Instead, she turned her head to look out the window, her expression unreadable. I decided not to push her. Maybe she'd been through something traumatic or needed time to process. I resolved to drive her to the nearest police station or hospital, whichever came first. About 10 minutes later, I noticed something even stranger. The radio, which had been playing steadily throughout the drive, began to crackle. Static filled the car, loud and jarring. I reached for the dial to adjust it, but it wouldn't budge. The static grew louder, almost deafening. I turned to the woman, hoping she might have some explanation, but she was gone. The passenger seat was empty. I slammed on the brakes, the car skidding slightly on the deserted road. My heart pounded as I frantically searched the car. The jacket I'd given her was neatly folded on the seat, but there was no trace of her. I stepped out of the car, the cold air hitting me like a slap. "Hello," I called into the night, my voice shaky. Where did you go? Silence. Silence. Only the sound of the wind rustling through the trees. I got back into the car, my hand trembling as I gripped the steering wheel. I didn't know what had happened, but I wasn't sticking around to find out. I drove straight to the nearest town, my mind racing the entire way. When I arrived at the police station, I hesitated to tell them what had happened. How could I explain something that I didn't understand myself? I finally settled on reporting a woman in distress I'd seen by the roadside. The officer on the duty gave me a strange look when I described her. You're not the first to report seeing her, he said after a long pause. What do you mean? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He leaned back in his chair, his expression grim. A woman matching that description was hit by a car on that road about 10 years ago. She didn't make it. Every so often, people claim to see her, standing by the roadside, waiting. Waiting for what? He shrugged. Nobody knows. That moment has haunted me ever since. I've gone over it in my head 1,000 times, trying to make sense of it. Was it my imagination? A hallucination brought on by fatigue? Or was it something else entirely, something I can't explain? All I know is that I'll never forget her face, the way she looked at me, or the chilling silence that filled the car. I wasn't supposed to survive that night, but for some reason, I did, and I can't help but wonder, why? What would you do if you were me in that story? Tell me in the comments below.